Hello, everyone. Today, doing a little live stream about GPT-5 and RAG. This is based off the blog post that I wrote yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever. And you can read that on my blog, but I figured it'd be fun to do a little live stream around it too and just demonstrate everything live. So in this post, basically I looked at the new GPT-5 models that came out. So we've got 5 different models here, 4 which we can use in the API. So we have the big one, GPT-5, that's like the full model. Then we have GPT-5 mini, which, the mini version of that, we've been used to that with GPT-4o and GPT-4o mini, and same thing with GPT-4.1. Then GPT-5 Nano, which is like tiny, and I never use the nanos, though I heard there are a few good use cases for them. And then there's GPT-5 Chat, which is interesting because these 3 are reasoning models, whereas this one is not a reasoning model. So it actually takes different options than its siblings, but it is supposed to be optimized for chat applications, and I am working on a chat application. So I wanted to check that one out too. And then there's also one called GPT-5 Pro, but that's not available in the API at this time. That's only in ChatGPT. I've also heard of GPT-5 Thinking, and I don't know if that's the same as Pro, but that's all ChatGPT. So when it comes to the API, these are the models that we can access. So that's what matters to us as developers. You can deploy these from OpenAI.com, from Azure OpenAI, from GitHub Models, all those places where you can try them out. So I've already got ones deployed with Azure. So I deployed them to use in this repo here. There you go, and show the links up here. Here you go, and yeah, so here I've got it running. So right now this is running on just the sample data, and the sample data is basically a bunch of PDFs from a fictional company, like, things about like employee benefits that people might ask like an HR chatbot. But we can run this same RAG repo on other types of documents too. So I've also got another one running, which is just on my personal blog. So I can ask questions about anything I've talked about on my blog. So that one's kind of fun. So here, okay, so we can go ahead and ask a question, right? So this is asking, about some insurance question. All right, what's in the plus plan that's not in the standard? So we get back a response, and it's coming back pretty quick, actually. Like, that feels faster than the usual reasoning models that we're used to. So then we can look at the thought process here, and this actually is a multi-step RAG flow. So the first thing that we do is we take the user's question and we convert it into a search query. And so that makes a call to GPT-5, and you can see that, it takes about 400 tokens to do that. Now, throughout this, I'm using reasoning effort of minimal. So I always use the lowest possible reasoning effort for the query writing stage, because query writing should not really require reasoning, right? That's a fairly easy task, and you could even use like a smaller model for it. But I'm also just using minimal generally because it seems to work well. But we have other options for reasoning effort. So there's minimal, low, medium, high. And, so depending how much time we want to spend reasoning and how much reasoning tokens we want to use, we can select any of those. All right, so we use that GPT-5 with reasoning effort minimal in order to turn this user's question into a search query. And you can see it, it strips out things like, what and question mark and punctuation, and just really focuses on words. And interestingly, like, one of the things I noticed in the blog post is that it is really being a lot more verbose with the rewritten queries in these models than it was in past models. So it's just generally a lot wordier. I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing, but it's definitely a lot wordier with these new queries. So then it takes a search query and then it sends it off to Azure AI Search. and gets back results from Azure AI Search. So these are all chunks from PDFs that have their, this is the page they came from, and this is the PDF they came from, and this is the chunk, right? So in this case, we're only getting 3 chunks. That's another thing we can configure, right? We always, when we started this RAG repo, we always started with 3 because we had small context windows then. These days, sometimes I pump it up to, 5, 10. Like I've pumped it up to 20, like especially if I set a re-ranker score. But anyway, so it was 3. That's our default, and you can usually get pretty good responses there. And then finally, we take the search results, we take the user's question, and we send them all to the model again. So this is a second call to GPT-5. Once again, using a reasoning effort of minimal, and you do see it used 0 tokens. In my experience, I have never seen it use any reasoning tokens when I do reasoning effort minimal, which is interesting. If anybody has seen it actually use tokens with minimal, I'm curious as to, what the question was that you threw at it. And, it was a particularly difficult question. So because it's using 0 reasoning tokens, that means the answer is faster to come down. And overall latency is better. So yeah, and then we get back the answer and it streams back and it looks like a good answer. Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting when I first tried out GPT-5 is the answer to this question here. What does a product manager do? Now that sounds like an easy question, but remember we're asking this question of a particular data set. And GPT-5 actually says, I don't know. The provided sources describe the manager and senior manager or product manager roles, but not an individual contributor. If you meant the manager, please confirm. And then, in this case, actually, I've never seen it do this. It's answering as if that's what we meant. Usually it just says, I don't know. And this sentence here, what verbosity are we on right now? Verbosity high, maybe that's it. Okay, so I did just add a verbosity setting. This is another parameter that you can use with the new GPT-5 reasoning models, is you can say verbosity low, medium, or high. And so I just added this as a setting to the app to see how that would affect things. So this is on, the default is medium. Right now we're on high. We could go all the way to low, but it looks like on high, it did decide to give a lot more information, because normally it just says, I don't know. So this is good that it said, I don't know, because all of the other models got tricked up by this question and didn't acknowledge the fact that the sources don't actually say what a product manager does. The sources only say what a manager or senior manager of product manager does. So I was really impressed when I saw that the GPT-5 full model realized that there was a discrepancy between the question and what the sources had. Now, when I use GPT-5 Mini, it only catches this about half the time. And then GPT-5 Chat doesn't really catch it much at all, right? So in my blog post, I talked about like instances of saying I don't know. So GPT-5 Chat only says that once, which is the same as GPT-4.1 Mini. Whereas GPT-5 said it 3 times, GPT-5 Mini said it 10 times, which is interesting. So I feel like it has less confidence than GPT-5, or in being able to answer. And so I'd have to like really check to see why, should it have known for 7 of those 10, right? Like, which of these should it have known the answers for, right, is a good question. But generally, I'd rather see a model that expresses uncertainty than a model that says like, oh yeah, I got this. I totally got this, right? So I like the fact that these new models are expressing uncertainty. Another interesting thing we see is this request for clarification. So let me try this question here. See how for response today. Of course, whenever you evaluate models, you can get different responses each time. In this case, let me set the seed. And okay, so one thing that can help with reproducibility is seed. Let me see what. But I didn't clear the chat. GPT-5 Chat. Oh, that was with GPT-5 Chat. Okay, so let's switch it to. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to show for the reasoning models. One little thing. Okay, let me clear this chat. Boop. Okay. All right. So basically, like the reasoning models are generally acting a lot differently than GPT-5 Chat. It feels like just completely different models. So one thing that's interesting, and this is such a minor thing, but it's still really interesting, is that generally the reasoning models are using smart quotes, right? So normally I just type like this, see this little quote here, it's straight up and down. This one is actually a special quote known as like a smart quote. I guess I can't search for that. What is this quote? Okay. Let's see what it'll come back with. But generally, it's a smart quote. So it actually takes effort to use this quote. So most people don't use it, but editors use it. Like if you're writing a book, you're going to use smart quotes or curly quotes are also called because they look a little bit fancier, right? But most humans don't use it. So let's see. Oh yeah. So in order to do it, you have to enable smart quotes in your keyboard. Yeah, these fancy models. So I suspect what happened, like why do the reasoning models have these? I assume that when they made the synthetic data used smart quotes, or that they trained it on a large amount of like published writings, like books, newspapers, that sort of thing. Because most humans, like certainly in Reddit, like we're not using smart quotes, right? It's too much work. Most people are not enabling it. So, when it comes for this RAG chat application, that doesn't matter. Unless you're doing some sort of like parsing to look for them, like highlighting, I don't know, or something. But when it does matter is if you're using GitHub Copilot or a coding agent with GPT-5, and sometimes, so it'll actually, like yesterday I was writing docs and it used smart quotes throughout that README, and I actually noticed it, and I was like, well, I don't want to do that because I want to be consistent, right? So I actually like wrote in the Copilot chat, I was like, oh, change all those smart quotes to ASCII quotes, and it did. And then I've also heard people report that it's even using smart quotes when it's trying to do tool calling. And that's really bad because then the tool calls will actually fail. So I do think that, that this smart quotes issue, I kind of feel like it's a bug. Like I think if I was OpenAI, I would come up with a new version of the model that didn't use smart quotes as like its default, because I think it's problematic when we're using these models in the coding space, because we almost never want to have smart quotes when we're writing code, right? So that's interesting. Yeah, so definitely just keep that in mind. Let me see. Oh, lists. Yeah, they really love lists. Like every single answer, not every single, but okay, for GPT-5, 72% of the answers it answered with a top level list. So that must be some way that they trained it, because I actually don't have anything in my system prompt that particularly tells it to make a list. Let me try this one. But 72% of the time responding with a top level list. Oh, and this one, it says, I don't know. Well, when it says, I don't know, it doesn't respond with a list. Let's see. What was another one? Yeah, so John says, why does the tool call fail for smart quotes? Well, if it's literally responding, imagine it's responding with like which tool to call. It's like, oh, you're going to call search query is the tool name, and then the arguments. So I don't know where it was. I'd have to look back to see what my colleagues say as to where it did it. But basically, like, a tool call response says the tool names to use and the arguments. So, those should all be ASCII quotes, not smart quotes. And if anywhere it uses a smart quote instead of an ASCII quote, then that's just going to be an invalid argument. So I'm not sure whether it was the tool name or the arguments or where it was, but it was somewhere in that tool call where it messed it up. All right, and here's an example where, yeah, it responds with a top level list, which is fine if that's what you want. Maybe that works well. But if you don't want it to be responding with lists all the time, you might want to put in your system prompt, what kind of response you want. All right. Generally, the answers are fairly long. Okay. And And yeah, and I think I mentioned already that the query writing is much longer, right? So here, what happens in a performance review? In the past, the models would just turn that into like performance review, right? And now we see performance review process. What happens during performance review? Steps, agenda, expectation, outcomes, feedbacks, goals, evaluation, meeting. So I really wonder about that. I feel like it's almost expanding this search query too much, because the thing is, we're already doing a vector search. So given we're already doing a vector search, it doesn't seem necessary to expand this as much as it does. And I almost think it might add some noise to the process. So I would like to experiment with maybe using a different model for this point, or explicitly using like verbosity low, and maybe putting something in the prompt to say like, don't expand it too much. It's really hard when you change models and one model is much more verbose than the other. It's hard to know what to put in the prompt to get it to be like the old model. And I think that's why they added this verbosity setting. But I also haven't had a lot of success with the setting. But I haven't done a bulk evaluation of it, right? So now that I have this, setting in there, I could actually do a bulk evaluation and say like, okay, what if for query rewriting, if I always say verbosity low? I think that would be a good thing. So I'll probably do a test with that to see what happens. Because yeah, this is just, I feel like they've expanded this query too much, and that it could add some noise to the search results. Yeah, so as John said, maybe use older models for search query generation. Yeah, or even maybe this is where we use the nano, right? Let me see. Do I have nano? I might have the nano. I might be able to try that right now, because I think I did deploy it. It was like weird when I used it for the whole flow. But let's see. I'm gonna switch. I should turn on my cloak. Boop. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's see this one. Let's see what models I have to try out. So Partner said, would it perform better with agentic RAG instead of the RAG implementation? So it depends what you mean by agentic RAG. I do actually have the agentic RAG feature. I don't have it turned on right now, but I can turn it on with a Boolean, which is agentic RAG with Azure AI Search, which does query planning. And but we that doesn't support the GPT-5 models yet, because they need a hot second to add support for those models. At least for the query writing. So that feature uses a GPT model with Azure AI Search to do query planning. But it depends what you mean. Like agentic RAG, you might just mean generally agentic RAG. This is doing a tool call. This is actually a tool call. Let me show the tool call that it's doing. Tool call tools. There we go. Okay. So that first call is in fact a tool call. It's a very, very simple tool call, but it is actually a tool call where it says, okay, you're going to call this function and you're going to call it with this query. So the LLM thinks that it's suggesting that we call this function and we pass in the query. And what I'm saying is that when it's coming up with that query, it's really being quite, it's coming up with a very verbose, very expanded query that feels a little unnecessary. So let's see what deployments I have in here. I do have Nano. Yeah, so let's just see what happens if we use Nano for that stage. So here, we're just going to hard code this to say GPT-5 Nano, and we'll comment that out. And then GPT-5 Nano, comment that out. Okay, so now we're doing Nano, reasoning effort minimal. Let's also do the verbosity low here. Oh, now I'm changing multiple things at once, but here we go. Let's try it out. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that task. All right, restart the server. All right. Yesterday, I set up this nice task in VS Code that starts up the front end and the back end in two side-by-side terminals, and I really like it. Okay. All right. Let's see. It is reloading. And let's try this out. Oops, type error. All right, what did I mess up here? Got an unexpected keyword verbosity. Oh, right, because we didn't change that to pass it in. All right, so we won't try verbosity right now because I need to adjust my code for that. I'll just start over. Actually, I forgot I set up auto reloading too. Okay, so I shouldn't actually have to start it over. It should auto reload. And all right, let's try this out. Okay. All right. Okay. So once it streams in, then we can check the thought process. All right. So this time, ignore that. It was actually nano. And says reasoning 128. Interesting. Why did he use 128? Okay. Oh my gosh. This is weird. Okay. I'm glad we tried this. All right. So you see what happens is that it heard search query and it thought in terms of, when you do like this Boolean or when you're doing search queries, this is supported by some like web searches. Like it's a certain syntax, a certain way of doing web searches, or you say, okay, this or this or this or this. Okay. So we don't want that. We're not sending this to a search engine that's like particularly optimized for this sort of thing. And it's just unnecessary, right? I mean, I think it'll perform fine, but it's not really what we wanted. As John said, yeah, it's kind of performing SQL. Yeah, it's kind of performing this web search. Like I was looking at the Postgres full text search, and they've got all these different like kinds of queries that you can pass in, and one of them is the one of them is the parsing queries. Is this where it is? Like this one, yeah. So or, right, or and, right. So if we were using a search thing that was particularly optimized for that, then that would make sense. Like Google has some operators as well, but here I don't think this is going to particularly help. All right, so that's what Nano did by default. So as I was saying, like Nano is just kind of a weird model. I don't know. I think I'd have to like give Nano a little more instruction. So I'm gonna give up on Nano already. Sorry, Nano. Bring back this, and then let me go ahead and add verbosity here. Verbosity. No string none. Okay, sure. And then verbosity equals overrides to get boss or okay. We'll say verbosity or okay. There's a lot of different places we could set these things. Okay, verbosity string. Okay, and then verbosity here. I'm just going to set it to low. Okay, great. And so now we're passing low. This is just for the query rewriting phase. So trying to use minimal reasoning effort, verbosity low. Yeah, and it was super weird that the Nano model actually used tokens that time. So maybe when you're doing minimal with the Nano model, maybe it feels like it has to reason sometimes to make up for the fact that it's a Nano model. I don't know. That was crazy because that's the first time I've seen minimal result in reasoning tokens and only with Nano. Okay, so let's see if how this one works. See if I have any errors. All right, so what happens? Okay, so this time reasoning 0. All right, verbosity. Yeah, even with verbosity low, it is still really expanding the query quite a lot. So yeah, so I think that's just something to experiment with and see, what what works, what doesn't work. Okay. So that's interesting. All right. So then the other thing was, I've been doing everything with GPT-5. I could also do GPT-5 chat. Oh, I see some questions. How much more affordable is Nano with this implementation? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe that would be the reason to use Nano and work with it. So what is the pricing? GPT-5 Nano pricing. Generally, the pricing is the same across OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. So we can just look at this. So Nano, it is a lot cheaper. 0.050. Yeah. Sorry, like 5 cents would be the way of saying that. 5 cents per million token versus 25 cents per million tokens versus $1.25 per million tokens. So definitely cheaper, but I'd probably go to GPT-5 Mini first over Nano. It says great for summarization and classification tasks. Yeah. Probably go to this one before I go to this one, but I think you can certainly, you can probably make Nano work here. Maybe we would like change, we're giving few shot examples right now. So we could like try and change the few shot examples to be clear. Put something in the prompt that says, no need to add additional synonyms. Just keep it how it is. And I'm sure we can make it work. The question is like, which of these models require customization versus just work well without any further customization, right? But most models, it's nice to do a little tweaking. So John says that it removed 2 list items. Well, in this case, we're doing, let's see, this is verbosity. What are we on? This is verbosity medium. So there's 2, remember we have 2 LLM calls. So the verbosity that I changed in the code was only to change the query writing. The verbosity of the final response I control via this setting here, right? So here we've got 3 things in this question. Let's see if we do performance low, what we get as a response. So there were 3 things before, and now there are 3 things. So generally not seeing a big difference with verbosity. I will run some actual bulk evaluations. I would assume that with doing bulk evaluations across like, 50, 150, 200 questions, like we should see some effect of that verbosity parameter. Be really interesting if we didn't. I haven't really seen that any effect when, doing it manually. Yeah, so there's definitely not like, I thought I would see like a big difference. I definitely haven't seen a big difference. And it changed nothing in the query writing. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about the verbosity parameter. It doesn't feel like it's as useful as we'd want it to be. Let's see. How did I do the task split thing? Oh, you want to see this? This is so nice. Okay. So the reason I did this is actually to work better with Copilot agent mode. I have this new debug mode, and the debug mode, sorry, this isn't RAG related, but the debug mode is a custom chat mode for GitHub Copilot, and it tells it which tasks to run in order to check things. So this is what I use if I'm, fixing a bug or something like that. So it knows how it can actually start the task and it can look at the output of the task. So if you want GitHub Copilot to have access to your task output, then you want to make a task, and in this case, a compound task, and it can check the output of both of those. So that's why I did it, was actually so that I could have GitHub Copilot be able to run the task itself. And it's all defined in task.json. I've already put it in the repo, but basically we've got the front end task, and it has a pattern so that it knows once it's ready. Because also you need to tell VS Code and tell GitHub Copilot when the task is ready. So here it's ready once you see the localhost URL, this one, pop up. And then the backend is ready once we see it says hypercorn running on this. That means this is ready. And that's why you see the 2 check marks, because that indicates that the tasks are ready. Yeah, and then we have this compound task that runs both of them. So that is really, really nice. It's my new it's my new favorite thing to do. And then I made this the default task. So if I just do Command Shift B, then it runs both those tasks, and they're both have hot reloading enabled. So it's a really nice way of developing, and it works nicely with GitHub Copilot. All right, so let's see. Question. I gave up a model. Which model am I using then? Mini. Oh, okay. So saying that when we use Azure, it is 10% more expensive than OpenAI pricing when you use data zone deployments. Okay, I'm using global standard, which is why it does match the OpenAI pricing. Yeah, I agree. Like, so right now in this repo, we actually don't have a setting to specify a different model for query rewriting. It would be a good setting to have. I guess we do have that when you're using the agentic RAG with Azure AI Search. So we kind of have that. So right now I'm just using the same one for both of them, which is GPT-5, but I can change. So let me go ahead and change that to GPT-5 chat to show you how different that is. So here, I just do it here. I'm just going to set this to chat, and then I'll set this to chat. Oops, sorry. Set the deployment to chat. And then Command Shift B, run the two tasks, wait for them to be ready. See how it's a little loading indicator until it's ready, because the back end takes more time than the front end. All right, and now it is ready. All right, and now we can go back here. And now it should be using the GPT-5 chat. So as you can see, I'm using this is all in Azure OpenAI. It's all global standard deployment. So that's the same as OpenAI pricing. And so that means it's like a shared pool of capacity. If you know you're going to use a lot of models, and you can do this provision thorough thing. But that's like, like a minimum of like thousands a month. So I don't do that for my demo ones. All right, so we've got that deployed. So now we can ask, what does a product manager do? Let's check this one out. Okay. All right, so you can see GPT-5 chat answered this question, even though, as I told you, this question should not be answerable, because there's actually no description in the PDF of what a product manager does. The only description is, this manager or product manager, and then senior manager or product manager, right? So GPT-5 chat is not, not able to reason. I don't want to say reason exactly. It's an LLM, right? So this LLM is not powerful enough to realize that it should not be able to answer this question based off these sources. Because a manager, product manager is not the same thing as a product manager. So generally what I see with GPT-5 chat, it's kind of just, it seems just more like GPT-4.1 mini. I think that would be like kind of closest to it. Like if we look at the overall stats here, and I also have that open here. So this is the overall stats, so GPT-5 chat, the baseline is GPT-4.1 mini. Like generally GPT-5 chat is the most similar to GPT-4.1 mini. And it just behaves a lot like it. Like a lot of the things I said here, like that, saying that I don't know, a lot of them are only relevant to the reasoning models, and GPT-5 chat is not like them at all, right? GPT-5 chat didn't use any lists. So when it's in chat mode, it doesn't like lists. It likes paragraphs, and that makes sense. It's also way shorter. Look at this, 549 characters answer length versus, these ones giving, 900 or so, right? Way shorter. And I think part of that is the not using lists. Like I notice when you use lists, it tends to be longer, because also usually does like a citation for each thing on the list. So that adds to the length. But the other thing about lists is that they're fairly easy to kind of glance over. So even though a paragraph can be shorter than a list, sometimes a list is more readable, right? And that's why we have like, BuzzFeed and news sites like to do lists, because humans like reading lists. We find them pretty readable. So yeah, the one thing that I did notice with GPT-5 chat, let's look at the query writing actually. I wonder how that, so with this, the query writing, so this is this is like a lot more like the old models, right? So what does a product manager do? Gets turned into product manager job responsibility and role description. Perfect. Love it. What's our pricing for GPT-5 chat? We should use that for it's funny that I want to use GPT-5 chat for the query writing, because that's not a chat at all. But, actually they don't even, it's so funny on OpenAI, they don't even talk about the GPT-5 chat model, which is strange. I don't know if it means they're going to get rid of it or something, but let's find the actual pricing for chat. I don't know why they don't. It's hard to find anything about GPT-5 chat on the actual OpenAI.com page. Don't know if they made it just for us or something. All right, so let's try in GPT-5 chat. Nope. All right, GPT-5. Oh, it's not on here at all. Oh, because maybe it's not in East. Let's see. Is it EastUS 2? Maybe we didn't update our pricing page yet. Okay, we're just gonna have to guess how much it costs. Okay. No, there's got to be some way of figuring out. That's so weird. All right, I will ask the. Wait, maybe we can look at it in the actual. Maybe this will say the pricing because we have it deployed. You would think we'd be able to see how much it costs. Let's see. GPT-5 chat. Okay. Rate limit, request quota edit. Nope. Oh, okay. John sent it to me on LinkedIn. Thank you, John. Yeah, I was wondering if someone else would figure this out before me. Okay. All right, thank you. Let me open this up in my main browser over here. Okay, GPT-5 chat. So we got 125 input, output. All right, that sounds the same. I feel like that's the same as GPT-5, no? Can I add, okay, compare. I wanted to compare GPT-5. Wait, how do we, I've never used, okay, let me see if I can use this UI. This is kind of fun. GPT-5 chat. All right. GPT-5 model used in ChatGPT. Input, output, same. Reasoning tokens, nope. Okay, input is the same. Output is the same. So that's very interesting. Okay, so the pricing for GPT-5 chat is the same as GPT-5. Fascinating. Looks like, oh, it's saying it doesn't support structured outputs and it doesn't support function calling. That's weird because it's working. Okay. I'll have to dig into why that's working. It's maybe because we have a fallback in case it doesn't, this function call doesn't work. That's really interesting. No fine tuning, no distillation. Okay. So it claims it doesn't support function calling. Fascinating. Huh. Okay. So yeah, so in this case, like this is what I'm, this is a nice query writing. But the price is the same as GPT-5. So, I have to really like measure and see what is, what do we want out of query writing, which ones are working well. Yeah, and the context window is less. Yeah, I noticed that too. So context window, this is a cool site, by the way. Let me share this up on the screen. Thank you, John. So yeah, comparing these, right? The window 400,000 versus 128,000. The max output tokens 128 versus 16. For the RAG chat application, all this doesn't really matter because we're not doing these huge contexts because most people don't have like really, really long conversations. But it could matter if someone having a very long conversation. I think ChatGPT, if you have a very long conversation, probably just summarizes the top, which is what most people do. So you can see chat doesn't do batch. Really interesting that it doesn't do function calling or structured outputs. I did not appreciate that. And then rate limits are the same. This is actually a really cool comparison thing. GPT-5 Nano. Speed. Fast. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, so chat. So chat. So the thing I wanted to show with chat is that it does do one thing that's nice is it asks for clarifications. Let's see if I can replicate this. Let me set the seed. Okay. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So this time, I wonder if the seed is actually working because, maybe my verbosity has changed. Oh no, but this one doesn't take verbosity. Yeah. I wonder if seed, I don't think they say here whether seed is reported, but I'm seeing a lot more variability. So I think I need to ask and check to make sure that seed is actually supposed to work with these new models, because normally when I set seed, I get a pretty reliable response, but this time these ones I'm not really getting a very consistent response. But anyway, the point is, at the end it said, which plan do you have? So this was something I noticed with the GPT-5 chat model, is that it is more likely to ask a clarifying question if it's not sure, right? In this case, it did actually like try and answer the question first. And then ask the clarifying question. But when I ran the evaluation, it just straight up said, oh, which plan do you have? Right? It didn't even try to answer the question. And this shouldn't depend on verbosity, because this model, I don't think this model should even, this model doesn't even work with verbosity. So, I think it's just sometimes. Let's try. Well, I just want to try the same seed, actually. I'm curious if seed is really working. Because usually if you have the same seed, okay, so that was a really similar answer. Okay, so let me try changing the seed to 42 and do the question again. Oh, now we're using bold. Very good. It's funny that it's suddenly getting more verbose. Well, we're just doing random seeds. This is what's so hard about evaluation, is you get differences each time. That one looked the same as the last. Oh, now we're getting some bullet points. There we go. Well, it's being really consistent with this this sort of answer here. And then we can be like, oh, I have Northwind standard, right? And then it'll follow up. So I think that asking clarifying questions is nice. And so generally that's what we're seeing a lot more. Oh, and look, it even has another question. Do you want to check? So it definitely seems like they've done additional tuning on this one to prompt it to like continue the, like, look at, oh, wow. Sure. Right. I don't even have to say anything. It'll just tell me what my, it just wants to keep going forever. Yeah, look at this. How is this even going to work? I don't even think there is a provider search tool. Really? Maybe there is. Would you like me to? Yes. GPT-5 chat is so different from the reasoning models, and I can't decide whether that's a good or bad thing. Look at all these follow-ups. Okay. What if I just keep saying yes? It'll just keep giving me more follow-up. Oh, finally. Okay. All right. So there we go. So it is very, very tuned to, asking a question at the end of something. So that must be part of its training to do that. Whether you want that or not, that's up to you. And I'm sure once again we could put something in a system prompt to try and gear it one way or the other. Right now with the system prompt, it does tell it to ask a question if it needs, right? So if let's see, if asking a clarifying question to the user would help ask the question, right? So that's where what probably inspired it to first ask clarifying questions, or maybe it's just part of its tuning and it would have done that anyway because it's a chat model. But certainly you can, experiment with that in your system prompt and decide. Okay, so that, so there we go. So I think we've seen a lot of the differences that I noticed. These are the evaluations that I run. I've been running more of them just to see kind of the differences. Like I ran another one on GPT-5 mini because originally my latency was really high, 12. And last night it was down to 7. So, a lot of these numbers have high degree of variability. So it does help to run evaluations with the same settings multiple times just to see the variability in them and see whether you want to, get a feel for how variable they are, right? Like I do set the seed whenever I run evaluation, but even with setting the seed, this is such a probabilistic system. If anything is slightly different, then everything can change, right? A single token can change the world. So it is definitely helpful to run lots of evaluations. And And you can also run it on, different data sets. So saying I do have one running on my blog. Let me see if I can switch over to my blog. That's actually in a different branch. Oh, I put a lot of stuff on this branch. All right, let me make a branch for this. Pamela stream change. I don't know. Add changes from stream. I think this is the verbosity actually that I added in here. Yeah. Okay. All right, and then let me check out my blog. And it's also in a separate index. So here we go. We go to my search service and look at my indexes. And we've got Pamela's blog. And so let me just set the index to my blog. Okay. And there we go. So let me restart the server. Actually, I don't even think I don't even need to check out my blog. I'll just check out main, or even what did we call this? Pamela's stream change. Okay. All right. And so just setting the search index should be enough because I've already ingested the blog there. So let's go and try this. See if that will be enough to point it at my blog. Okay, and then what does Pamela program in? Let's try this out. All right, so then we got answer currently focuses on Python, using it with Azure service like web app search. I've worked with PHP, HTML, and CSS, right? So I find it more helpful to, when I'm doing evaluations, to also run evaluations on data that I know really well. I know myself pretty well, so it helps to have it, a RAG that's actually on my own blog. So I'm like, all right, how many kids does she have? And we'll get back 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Well, that's not up to date because they're 6 and 3 now. And that's what's hard about time. So, what I could do in a case like this is give it a lot more information about what is today's date and what are the dates of each of the chunks, right? That would, like, especially if you're ingesting something like a blog, you do want to like have dates and show the dates. Because in this case, we're not, when I give it the content, it does see that they here, right? So I could like say like, oh, by the way, today's date is 2020, whatever it is, 2025, right? And then, and then it would figure it out. Let's see. How do you deploy Python to Azure Container Apps? Get a little answer here. And this is all based off my blog. Okay. And this is the chat model. So once again, we're getting that follow-up. We're getting a follow-up question. Do I want the exact CLI commands? Okay. So yeah, that chat model really, really likes to do that. So I also ran the evaluations off this one, and I saw similar things to what I saw on the blog. Okay, so I think that was all the stuff I was going to show. If there's anything else people want to ask or experiment with, let me know. Otherwise we'll call it for today. I did see some, like, there was someone commented actually that they didn't like the I don't know response. They said like, well, when a model says I don't know, that implies that the rest of the time they do actually know, and really a model never knows, right? A model is just this probabilistic text generator. So we were talking about like different approaches to that. Like you could have the model send down like a certainty score. You could have the model always start off with saying like, well, my best guess is, you could just have the model, like maybe in this case, instead of saying, I don't know, it should say instead like, say, there is not enough information in the sources, right? Actually, let me try that. And let me switch over to Azure. Okay, let's see. So the search index, let me switch back to the other one, test agentic 5, okay. And then let's go to the GPT-5 model again. GPT-5, GPT-5. All right, so now I'm going to see what it does with that prompt. And so one thing that's cool, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's this thing called the Hacks Toolkit library. And it's all these guidelines for, you know, how LLM powered apps, AI powered apps should convey things to the user, right? So I like these, like, make clear what the system can do, make clear how well the system can do. And if you look at each of them, then you can look at actual examples, and those are really nice, right? So it says like, oh, you know, match the level of precision, right? So this one starts with I'm not sure. You can highlight if you know some things are correct and some things aren't. You can do all sorts of cool things. So definitely check out that Hacks Toolkit to get inspiration for how you can convey uncertainty in an AI application. Okay, so let's see. So that's reloaded now. And I want to try this one to see how it responds this time, to see if that. Oh, great. Okay. So it's definitely, wow, it was very, very terse. There is not enough information in the sources. Well, it definitely paid attention to what we said to do. There's not enough information in the sources. So now I know that I don't know was coming from this line of the system prompt. So we can really, you know, control it with that. I almost think that was too terse, because I did, like before, and explain if there is any related source material. Let's try that. Let's see. Oh, I see some questions now. Okay. So Ahmed said the screen share is at 720p. I don't know if that's a StreamYard. Let me check the StreamYard settings. General. It just says it's at 1080, but it doesn't say whether that's a screen or not. It might just be my Mac settings, right? So I'm not sure with the Mac, but I just zoomed it in a bit. And then I see a question from Mario as well. All right, so let me just test out this change and then look at that question. Okay, so this one I like. There's not enough information to find the general. The provided sources describe responsibilities, which include blah, blah, blah. So that's nice. So I like this, right? Not enough information in the sources, and then says what they haven't said. So that might be a better approach than the I don't know response, because maybe the I don't know is too much of an anthropomorphism, like too much, making it seem like the rest of the time that it does really know. So that's a good point. So, all right. So anyway, so you can control a lot with your system prompt. So Mari says, how can we use an obscure RAG setup to process a file once, even if it appears thousands of times, and still enforce fast, scalable RBAC filtering without bloating the AI search metadata? Well, it depends how you're doing the data ingestion, right? Like, you know, for this one, I'm just doing it with the really basic approach where we have that MD5 file locally, right? So if you look at my data folder, you know, I have for each thing in here, there's an MD5. And so the MD5 is the hash of the file. And each time we look at it, we hash the file, we see if the MD5 matches. And if it does match, then we don't need to process again. If it does, then we need to process again. And the new chunks will override the old chunks, because everything is like all the ID and all that stuff. The ID is generated based off of the file, right? So that's the approach we take here. If you use Azure AI Search, you might also be using the indexer. And I believe the indexer does something similar. with making sure that it's not double indexing things and that it's able to pick up when there are file changes. I haven't used the indexers very much myself, but I hope they're clever like that. Right, so indexer, blah, blah, blah. And then I think most people are using, incremental indexing detects new and updated files and metadata through built-in change detection. So I think that's what most people do, is to use that indexer. And you can see it's doing something similar. It's doing an MD5 and using that in order to figure out if it's changed or not. So I'm gonna say it's StreamYard scales down the quality of the screen share. All right, yeah. It also could be. Let's see. How much am I paying? I also don't remember how much I'm paying for StreamYard. StreamYard can be a little expensive just because we don't get it reimbursed by work or anything. I think I'm paying like $100 a month or something. So whatever I get from that. All right, cool. So I think we explored lots of stuff with GPT-5 and RAG today. Definitely check out the new models, some really interesting differences between them. And I think there's a question of, exactly which one you should use and for which stage of the process. I'll probably run some evaluations looking at verbosity and seeing if that truly does change it. And then maybe also run some evaluation of reasoning effort to see, right now I'm doing minimal for every part of the stage, but, some people might be interested in increasing that minimal to low, medium, or high for difficult domains. So it'd be interesting to see how much that affects the latency and mostly the latency, right, and the associated cost. Where can you find me to ask new questions? Well, as always, we've got our Azure AI Discord office hours. I think you've come to that one. That should be coming up on Thursday, so that'll be the next thing. So that is linked from my GitHub. So come to our Azure AI Foundry Discord office hours every Thursday. And that's a great place for digging into more things. And let me know if there's something particular you want me to explore in future live streams, because I just find them to be pretty fun. All right, bye everyone.